This is the cruelty that exists in all of us in this modern period.
That leads me to believe that the orcs are still just able to breed on their own.
Okay.
And that, but because they are corrupted with evil spirits, then they breed kind of out as they're not irredeemably evil. I don't think he's saying that orcs are going to repent, and it's possible to have orcs fight on the side of the good guys.
Yeah.
From mountains high to dungeons deep, there's a lot of Tolkien lore to keep. Heroes bold and villains vile, going through it all's gonna take a while. By land or trees or even stars, we're gonna shed some light in this time of ours.
Okay, let's get going. Welcome everybody to the Undertower. We are over the hill, under the hill, and back again for another discussion.
Yes.
Okay, I'm Tucker Morin. This is
Ethan Frost.
Here we are, Library of Undertower again. So yes. Just okay. Oh yeah, we've got to throw it out there. A little announcement. We have decided that we're going to make debates separate episodes. The first episode just felt a little bit rushed, and so we're going to make them kind of their own events. So there will be a debate coming up, but it's not going to be this episode. This is just going to be a discussion / lore. All right, and with that, then I guess we'll get into it. What are we talking about this week, Ethan?
We're going to start by talking about orcs.
Orcs, everybody's favorite basic bad guy. So yes, first episode we talked about subcreation versus creation. Second episode, when Clark was here with my brother, we talked about magic and the nature of magic. And this episode, we're gonna again kind of going off of that with magic and subcreation. We're gonna talk about the orcs. So with that, I guess makes the most sense to start with how they were made to help tie it in. The orcs were initially created, it's very clear, in the Silmarillion that they were elves who were corrupted and tortured by Morgoth until they became evil monsters.
Yes. And Tolkien wrote, there were other things that happened, but there was still a little, Morgoth could not create things by himself, so he needed to find cruel other ways to have it, and he discovered the only way to do it was to twist various races which were created. And when the elves first came into being, Morgoth was in Middle-earth. The Valar were not. So he took a lot of elves and, whether by force or by treachery, locked them up in his fortress and tortured them, mutilated them. According to the Tolkien Companion, it also said he worked with other ancient stock to help him with it. I don't know exactly what that means, but I'm accepting he used elves as a standard blueprint, and after torturing, mutilating them, he likely did a form of unnatural mix with foul magic to create the orcs.
Definitely. Yes, with that, I guess it's a good point. I guess a little bit of history then. Yes, the Valar, the god-like figures in Middle-earth, they're not exactly gods, we'll get into that later, then they came to Middle-earth first and they built Middle-earth. And then later on, the first elves were awakened in the world. And by the time that happened, then the Valar were living separate from Middle-earth on their own. And Morgoth was in Middle-earth by himself. They'd separated themselves. And so Morgoth had pretty much free reign in Middle-earth mostly, which allowed him to corrupt the elves. And so at this time, the sun and the moon had not been created, so it was totally starlight. Everything was done by starlight, so it was very dark, and Morgoth would send out these monsters into the darkness to hunt, and any elves that were not in large enough groups would get kidnapped and taken by Morgoth into his fortress, where they were tortured and twisted. And then that goes into interesting you read there about like other stock helping him, because like we do know that there are other entities like the Valar who do exist.
Yes,
like that, and that not they all some of them have gone their own ways to do various good or evil things, and so that's very interesting to read. That to see that Morgoth kind of had some lab assistants, you might say, when working with that, and how like later on too, other monsters he'll make, like werewolves and dragons. It references him like putting evil spirits into things.
Yeah.
So like that could be part of the other stock he's working with.
Because this is something which I respect and understand, because Tolkien made the world, he made the rules, and so on and so forth, and he was consistent with them. I think we can say that he was rather consistent with them, but he was vague on the question on why orcs always outnumbered the elves and the humans, because the orcs he wrote the orcs were in massive numbers, more numbers than the free peoples. So you're like thinking, how was he able to kidnap all these elves to make all of these? So it's like something else. So that's kind of why I feel like this ancient stock is a secret force multiplier. Like the first elves were taken, but due to this artificial stock, maybe like, I would not say bred, but like something happened that allowed him to multiply these numbers faster. I listened to another Tolkien scholar saying how like Morgoth would torture the bodies and the souls of the elves. The elven spirit will flee to Valinor, and Morgoth would infect these elven bodies with evil spirits, and that became the orc.
Okay,
so
that makes sense. Do you remember the name of this?
I think it is the Deep Geek Chan.
Deep Geek. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Do you remember his like reference for that? Because I just not that I doubt you. I would just like to know.
He did not say.
Okay.
He said he did not say. I admit it's been a while since I looked through the video, and trying to prepare for this, I could not find the video, and I only found access to the books and such.
That's probably what's interesting, because when I was doing some research, like I found something that makes me think that the orcs can breed, because they were a manipulation of the elves, and not because they were a twisting of an already pre-existing race. Then that they maintain some like degree of realness. Okay. Let me see if I can find the. Okay, it says. This is in letter number 153 of Tolkien's, written to a Peter Hastings. It's a draft of a letter, written in 1954. It says here, but whether they could have souls or spirits seems a different question. And since, in my myth at any rate, I do not conceive of the making of souls or spirits, things of equal order, if not equal power, to the Valar as a possible delegation, I have represented at least the orcs as pre-existing real beings, and the Dark Lord has exerted the fullness of his power in remodeling and corrupting them, not making them. So because they were pre-existing real beings who had those already had their creative abilities, which Iluvatar allowed them to have anyway, then that leads me to believe that the orcs are still just able to breed on their own.
Okay.
And but because they are corrupted with evil spirits, then they breed kind of out of control. Because like we see, like the elves, they don't breed a lot. Like they certainly have enough to replace their numbers, and they do grow, but like they're really not very high in population.
Yeah, I feel like how an elf work is like an elf couple, just like they have children, but they invest all their time and effort into raising the child, so to ensure the child grows properly, understands properly, and so on and so forth. Humans and dwarves do also to an extent, but the orcs breed out of control like rabbits. So it's like the orcs would have like thousands of offspring, and these orcs are just left for themselves. No one going on, and you're probably going to get to that later. I don't know, but like I feel like Azog and what was his son Borg. I feel like Borg was probably the only child this Azog guy. I don't might have had some knowledge of, but I don't know, because that's. But back to the thing, that's kind of what I feel like. Like orcs, like they bred so out of control, they did not give any thoughts to their kids. Were the free peoples, they gave time and effort to all their kids. So that's kind of why they were bred slowly.
Which I also think tracks with like the nature of evil, where like you said, Morgoth, he can't like where it's very it wants to dominate things. So like Morgoth, he wants to control and he wants to dominate. And when you go with that intention, like was talked about in the last episode with the magic, your intention going into it does matter. And so when you have the intention of wanting to dominate and wanting to control and have things to worship you, then Morgoth, he loses his ability to like subcreate purely, and so he has to corrupt things. And so to look at the other free peoples like the elves or the humans and the way that they reproduce, and with it being much more deliberate and controlled and they care, versus these orcs who are just always more populous because they're just breeding out of control.
Yeah,
to show like another twisting of what naturally should have been. Yeah. That's another evidence, I think, for why there are so many orcs, that they just breed a ton.
Yeah,
I think it tracks with the nature of a corrupted creature.
No limits, no respectability, completely out of control.
The only time there's like the orcs have any kind of like control is when they have some kind of dark lord imposing his will upon them and being like, you're gonna do this thing. So other than that, they just gotta do whatever they want, and it's always a bad thing they want.
Well, let's be honest, either way it's a bad thing for them. A dark lord forces them, or they do their own thing. But
Oh, I just remembered I forgot to. No, wait, did I forget to print that off? Which one is it? Okay, it's in here. Okay. All right, then. Anyway, yes, I was going to use that to talk about how that. Oh, yes. It's right here. Aha. Before I do that, there's one thing that I really want to emphasize about these orcs that it's kind of interesting to me. So just a little quick sentence here in the Silmarillion before I read another thing, where it says here about Morgoth corrupting the elves. It says that this it may be was the vilest deed of Melkor and the most hateful to Iluvatar. Now Melkor, if you may remember, is the Satan of Tolkien's mythology. So to say that out of everything Melkor ever did, that the worst thing he did was make the stock bad guy of his armies that just always get their butts kicked and are constantly screaming and running for their lives, to say that's the worst thing that he's ever done, that's a big deal. Yeah. And that because it was a corruption of the child of Iluvatar.
Yeah.
Which then with that, there's another quick sentence here from the letter to Peter Hastings, where he says, "They would be Morgoth's greatest sins, abuses of his highest privilege, and would be creatures begotten of sin and naturally bad. I nearly wrote irredeemably bad, but that would be going too far, because by accepting or tolerating their making necessary to their actual existence, even orcs would become part of the world, which is God's and ultimately good." So this brings us to the debate about whether orcs are redeemable or not.
Yes. Are we going to cover this, or are we going to go into the nature of orcs?
I think it's part of the nature of orcs.
Yeah.
I think it's part of it. Because Tolkien says naturally evil, and now, in my opinion, when he says they're not irredeemably evil, I don't think he's saying that orcs are going to repent and it's possible to have orcs fight on the side of the good guys.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what he's saying here.
Yeah.
I think that would be too much of a stretch.
Yeah.
Because they are, like he says, they are naturally bad.
Yeah.
They are. Like, it is in their nature to be bad. So even though, because the world overall is good, which I think is something I would say about our world, it is, overall, on the whole, it is a good thing.
Yeah.
It is God's, and God makes things that are good overall, though there's some corruption going on that he has to tolerate, but it is overall good.
Yeah. Yes.
No. And because of that, then you can't... anyway, because of that, to say that orcs are completely irredeemably bad, well, Tolkien's arguing, I think, that calling orcs irredeemably bad doesn't work because the world itself is not irredeemably bad.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, that makes sense. Yeah. So it comes down to the orcs choose to be bad because they don't know anything else. The concept of good is alien to them, right?
Oh, yes. That's yes. Like, yes, the concept of good is alien to them. That, like, it's not so, like, anyway, I wouldn't say it's that they don't know, because, like, they see people doing good things, they just hate it.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, like, it's alien to them. That's actually seen quite a bit throughout the works of Tolkien, for both the good guys and bad guys. Both of them, the other is very alien to them.
Yeah.
Or like Morgoth, or like Morgoth is let out of prison the first time because the Valar don't really comprehend him. They don't really comprehend how bad he is. Yeah. Whereas in like the War of Wrath at the end of the First Age, Morgoth never sees it coming because he has no pity. And he cannot comprehend that the Valar could take pity on the free world and come and destroy him. And so we see it, and those are just two examples, but so we see it all the time.
Yeah, well, a third example is Sauron never sent guards at Mount Doom because he would never anticipate someone to use the One Ring, throw the One Ring into Mount Doom. He would think, that's the most powerful weapon in existence. Why would you throw it away?
Yes. That's a way better example than mine. Holy cow. Yeah. That's a great example, yes, the Ring of Power, that Sauron just could not comprehend not using the Ring of Power. And that was like, Gandalf even says that was their greatest edge, is that they are trying to destroy it, and that the enemy cannot comprehend trying to destroy it. So that was a great example.
Thank you.
That's a way better example than mine even. Yes.
There is something written in The Hobbit which discusses more about the nature of orcs.
That is true. Let us go there. So this, The Hobbit, and it says it in a much more easy to digest way to The Hobbit. Yes. Where is it? Here we go. Here it starts, yes. So this...
before you continue, may I say something
to
the audience? Some of you may be confused because some of you watched the films, seen goblins versus orcs. in the works of Tolkien, he uses the words interchangeably sometimes. They still are technically the same species. So just for context.
Yep. Yes, that is true. Where it's mostly in like the Lord of the Rings, Silmarillion uses orc, and then in the Hobbit mostly, it's where goblins use more. But yes, like Ethan said, it's a same thing, just different word. Actually, Tolkien he used the word goblin from another author that he read. I forget the name of him now. And that guy used the word goblin, but Tolkien didn't want to keep that word goblin because his goblins were notably different, and so he tried to think of a different word for it, and he used an old Norse word, which is spelt the same, which means demon. Fun fact. Okay. Yes, this is a very much more easy to digest description about just like this is like the basic nature of orcs. First we talked about how orcs are naturally bad. They are inclined to do bad things because they were corrupted. So this description is more like on the ground, rubber hits the road. This is what goblins and orcs do and they look like to everybody else. Now, goblins are cruel, wicked, and bad-hearted. They make no beautiful things, but they make many clever ones. They can tunnel and mine as well as any but the most skilled dwarves, and they take the trouble. They can tunnel and mine as well as any but the most skilled dwarves when they take the trouble, though they are usually untidy and dirty. Hammers, axes, swords, daggers, pickaxes, tongs, and also instruments of torture they make very well, or get other people to make to their design. Prisoners and slaves that have to work till they die for want of air and light. It is not unlikely that they invented some of the machines that have since troubled the world, especially the ingenious devices for killing large numbers of people at once. For wheels and engines and explosions always delight them, and also not working with their own hands more than they can help. But in those days and those wild parts they had not advanced, as it is called, so far. They did not hate doors especially, no more than they hated everybody and anything, and particularly the orderly and prosperous. In some parts, wicked dwarves had even made alliances with them, but they had a special grudge against Thorin's people, because of the war which you had heard mentioned. Okay, that's all we need, really. All right. That's all I need to go. So, yes. That is the description that Tolkien gives of just like rubber hits the road, the orcs. So you can see here that I take this and I compare it to the elves that they are a corruption of. That the elves make lots of beautiful things.
Yes.
Elves love to make beautiful things. They live outdoors and in the sunlight.
Yes.
And beneath the stars. And that
they are also excellent hosts.
Oh, yes.
As well.
They're great at it, yes. Whereas the orcs, they love to take prisoners, and they don't want to do anything for themselves if they can help it. That they love to take prisoners and make the prisoners do their work.
Yeah. And earlier in that book, in The Hobbit, Elrond, he had misgivings about Thorin's quest for Erebor, but he still helped him out regardless. That is pretty much an elf thing to do.
Right.
Like, they would give, instead of having others give to them, they would give to others they come across. So, yeah.
Also here the orcs are probably responsible for inventing these engines of war that kill tons of people at once.
Yes.
You see like that the elves and other free people are like they don't engage in war unless they have to defend themselves. They would much rather just live peacefully.
Yes.
And in the Silmarillion, then the invention of weapons is considered a bad thing.
Yeah.
It is a sad event when weapons are first invented. And the orcs love weapons because they are a corruption. This is unnatural to like these kinds of things. Oh, I lost my train of thought.
Another difference is the elves do not take pleasure in hurting someone, a lot of elves, their primary great art is healing. In comparison to the goblins, their primary art is causing pain, death, and suffering.
Yep. Yes. I remember I was going to go with this. That it says that they hated everyone and everything, but especially the orderly and the prosperous. And this, to me, is like a huge, like, blinking neon lights of, like, the will of Morgoth put into the orcs. Because Morgoth, there's several things that Morgoth is not able to dominate. Morgoth, from the very beginning, he is always trying to dominate things.
Yeah.
He's trying to he tried to take light for himself, but he couldn't get it. He was never able to like fully master running water. Morgoth until Morgoth got his flying dragons at the last possible second. He had no air power in the slightest. He had no air force. There are some things Morgoth just cannot get. And whenever Morgoth cannot get something, he hates it. Yes. He hates it with a passion. He goes nuts. And he just sits and he stews in the darkness when he cannot control something. So I seeing this where like the elves and like the goblins and the orcs here, where they're dirty and they don't really care to work very hard and they're just makeshift with everything. And they love to like destroy stuff and kill people all the time. And that like then they hate the people who are orderly, who are prosperous. Anyone who's not like them, they just hate them outright.
Yeah.
And reading that in The Hobbit, and then reading it later in the Silmarillion, I was like, oh, the nature of evil. It's like the consistency you're talking about.
Yes.
So that was one thing I really wanted to call out from that section.
Yeah. So on that note, do you want us to delve into the nature of evil or keep going with this?
Maybe going. I think if you have anything more you want to say on the nature of evil, I think we've been talking about the nature of evil.
Well, yes.
If you have anything else you want to say about it, go right ahead.
Nothing, really. Nothing.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. With that, then another big thing with orcs is the amount of times that people try to say they criticize Tolkien for his use of orcs and say like this group of people is supposed to be orcs. You shouldn't do that kind of thing. And like that like the risk that there is with using the term orc in the real world. And so I would like to go into a little what Tolkien had to say about it and kind of his philosophies to kind of clear that up and tell people when it's appropriate to call somebody an orc.
I will personally. Would you mind if I start with this? I read this book called Hobbit and History. It talked about possible traits of possible comparisons between Tolkien's work and throughout history, and it mentions something about goblins, which I found as interesting.
Okay,
the author did not mention a specific sort of people, but it says the goblins, the orcs, represent the cruelest hearts, darkest hearts of man in the era of modern war. Tolkien grew up. Actually, no. Tolkien fought in World War I, and he saw, I think you can say, humanity's darkest moments, like thousands upon thousands of faceless soldiers marching to kill thousands of enemies, weapons of war designed to kill hundreds, if not thousands of people in an instant. So I feel like that is what Tolkien had when he wrote it. It is like there's no specific people. This is the cruelty that exists in all of us in this modern period, and this is something we should keep in mind, we all have the potential to be orcs or delve into a nature similar to orcs. And so, or at least that's what my take is about it. But I do not think saying orcs or goblins are a good term for anyone. It's just, at the end of the day, it's a story of a fictional race. But what do you think?
Oh, yes. Well, I mean, first, if I agree, it is at the end of the day, it's a story about a fictional race. And there's, I mean, even Tolkien said stuff like that. Like his, here, where does he see? Hold on, I had it a second ago. Oh, yes. He says, yes, I think the orc as real as a creation as anything in realistic fiction. Your vigorous words will describe the tribe. Only in real life they're on both sides. Of course, for romance has grown out of allegory, and its wars are still derived from the inner war of allegory, in which good is on one side and various modes of badness on the other. In real exterior life, men are on both sides, which means a motley alliance of orcs, beasts, demons, plain, natural, honest men, and angels. But it does make some difference who are your captains, and whether they are orc-like per se. So, like you said, even Tolkien says here, like, it's a work of fiction. Like, in his work of fiction, all the orcs are over here, all the elves are over here, and like, yes. But with that said, like I say, with that said, like, it's not good to say like all of those guys are orcs. Like with the Russia-Ukraine war, there were some people saying like the Russians are orcs, and it's like, like it's not really appropriate to say Russians are orcs. Yeah. Like that, like it's not. And like Tolkien here, like he even said, like Tolkien even acknowledged that on his own side, or the side his son was fighting in World War II, there are some orcs there. Yeah. Like orcs are everywhere in the real life. In a story, you can put them on one side. Yeah. It's not so cut and dry in real life. But he also says, like he says here, like it doesn't matter who your leaders are and whether they're orc-like per se. Yeah. So like there are on all sides some people, like you can take an individual and you can say like, yeah, that thing you did, that was kind of orc-like. You probably shouldn't do that in the future. Yeah. That's because Tolkien didn't like allegory. Yes. I forget. There's another letter he wrote to someone where this woman asked him if the orcs are supposed to be communists. And Tolkien said, like, I hate allegory. There's no allegory in my story. It's like the orcs are not supposed to be communists. And he says, and said that it'd just be fair to ask if are communist orcs. Like, not every communist is going to count as an orc per se. Yeah. But he also said in the letter, he says, that does not mean that there isn't any applicability. Yeah. So, like, there are some things that are orc-like, but not, you can't say they're all orcs. Yeah. Yeah, that. I feel like that fits the whole narrative of Tolkien's work. You may find similarities between the books and in real life, but he just wrote it like a story. A core of what he likes is fantasy as escapism. Yeah. In reality, I feel like if we find similarities between his work and out here, that makes it relatable, and it proves he did a good job writing this for us to enjoy. Like applicability versus allegory. Yes. Also, like what you said about like the orcs representing like the dark side in all human beings. Yes. So like with that, like there's another thing I remember him saying. It was an interview I listened to. It was a recorded interview I listened to, where Tolkien, he says that Middle Earth is a secondary like world of imagination. Yeah. And that within that world, the elves are supposed to represent what humans could be if we didn't have like the unhealthy drive, to dominate and to just get more, and that we just lived forever and we were dedicated to beauty, what we could achieve, what we could be. It was like the human being, like with a better nature, living forever, a better version of man. That's what the elves are supposed to be. Yeah. Which I think tracks. Like carrying on with like his whole work and with what you said, with everything fitting together well, that the orcs being the representing like the bad side of humanity.
Yes.
And the orcs are elves that Morgoth twisted, and the elves naturally are supposed to represent all the best sides
Yes.
of humanity.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Then they end up being the most just generic foot soldier possible.
Yeah.
Which, yep.
Which is ironically sad. The worst of human nature is millions of us, millions of people would walk lockstep in whenever a leader like a Dark Lord or something comes to power and offers something that attaches the worst of human impulses to follow.
And that's kind of I think that's kind of trying to get with the ring.
Yeah.
Like Boromir, like he wasn't perfect, but he was a great man.
Yes.
But the ring tried to offer him what he wanted. Like, I think that's part of the point, in my opinion, is that what the ring offers, in the end, everybody's susceptible to that.
Yes.
To some degree, to some way or another, like there's like nobody is entirely safe. Like Sam is the only person to ever like put the ring on and just like completely reject the temptation.
Yeah.
And he only wore it for a few hours. To be fair.
Yeah. Well, but there was also like a slight temptation there. Like, like the ring gave him in a delusion of turning Mordor into the largest, grandest garden in the world. I still am interested how that would turn up. But anyway, yeah. So, he only had it for a few hours, so it was not a hold on him. But even still, Sam, the first one to voluntarily given up, he was for a bit tempted with a great desire of his heart, and which is he's a gardener. He likes to work and such, and it's like, here, I have something before you. And Sam is like, oh, that's nice, what I can do. Then says, okay, never mind. Here he goes.
So why would I want? Yeah. Sam's like, why would I want all of that? I don't want that much. It's great. So okay. Well, I think that was a pretty good discussion about orcs. Yep. I mean, they still a little bit about like their creation and how they breed was a little. We'd each found some different evidences, so I guess that part wasn't quite resolved yet.
No. Well, to be fair, Tolkien was rather vague about
it's true.
it. So
it's true that part that part of the orcs Tolkien didn't go into in perfect detail. Like there are things Tolkien admits that they just didn't. They weren't very important to what he was trying to get across in his stories. So he just kind of didn't go that much into detail. Yeah. And how there are so many orcs is one of those little details he just never really went into. So you're right. I think it's who knows really. But,
yeah.
But with that, well, I think that was good.
Yeah.
Everything that you want to say before we close up?
Thank you all for tuning in, and it was a great discussion, and hope to see you all next time.
Yeah, that was good. All right. As usual, this is going to be available on YouTube and Spotify, so give us a like and a subscribe. We'll see you next time. The Live Undertower. Oh, sorry, one more quick announcement. My brother Clark met last week. He has agreed, and he's going to make us, he's working on a fully animated little video to go with our intro song. So you'll have to suffer through my, pretty mediocre intro for just like 1 or 2 more weeks. Then we'll have a really good one for you. So stay tuned for that. And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Undertower.
From mountains high to dungeons